I'm back. And it feels so good to be back. It feels so good to be back. And I want to apologize that I'm showing up live a little later than expected. I was having some tech difficulties. Hello for everyone who's here. I was having some tech difficulties because Facebook is always changing things around and I just cannot keep up. I am having a very difficult time keeping up. So thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you so much for watching. And I'm really excited to be back and here with you for another episode of Truthfully Live. It's a brand new episode. I'm pumped. So I've returned. I actually took a little bit of time off really to focus on my 90-day group sisterhood experience. And I'm now back in action and I'm really excited to be here and to be showing up for you because I missed connecting and sharing and supporting you. So I'm really pumped to be back today. So for those of you who are maybe new to the Turn to Love Live episodes, or you've never heard of me before, I'm just going to introduce myself. So I'm Sarah Pettis. I'm a body positive intuitive eating coach. Excuse me. I just had my lunch and I have something caught in my throat. And I'm also the founder of turnuptolove.ca. And basically what I do and how I support women is I help serial dieters to stop the self-critical body talk, the obsessive calorie tracking, feeling guilty around food, and really using exercising as punishment, and instead teach them how to trust food and their bodies again. Okay, so it's a little bit about me and what I do, but what I'm here to talk to you guys about today is actually the top 3 influences that cause negative body image and weight issues, because this is a very important topic. It is very real in our world of photo editing and filters and Instagram highlight reels. So I thought this would be a really good thing to get into because the entire month of May is going to be around body positivity, because we gotta change how we are looking at our bodies. We are unkind to our bodies. We are punishing to our bodies. We're experiencing a lot of guilt and shame around the bodies we're living in. And the truth of the matter is we have much more important work to do in this world. So I really want to help you to come from a place of love and acceptance and care versus a place of judgment and criticism. Okay, so we're also going to be breaking down a couple of other things today. So we're going to be breaking down how to know if you're actually experiencing body image issues. So the signs and the symptoms that you can actually look out for. Okay, and I'll share a little bit about my experience as well. I'm also going to be chatting about with you guys how to be really mindful of the not so secret truth of media's portrayed ideal thin body type, okay? Because they are just showing it everywhere, and it may be subtle images, but it's definitely impacting us on a larger scale, right? And then I also want to get into hardcore proof that shows that thinness does not actually equal happiness by any means. Okay, because so often we can get caught up in that thought and we think that if we are not thin, we are not worthy of love or we are not worthy of acceptance. I know I definitely battled with that when I was struggling with my own self-esteem and body image issues. Okay, so I want to give you a bit of love and support and guidance around that as well. So before we get into things, if you know someone, if you have a soul sister, if you have a friend, if you have a family member that could really benefit from this conversation, someone who's been really struggling with their self-esteem, they've been comparing themselves to others on social media, or they're constantly putting others before themselves, I really encourage you to please share this message out there. I can only support those who know about me, and I can't do that without your help. So if you like what I'm saying at any time during this live discussion, or you know someone that could benefit from this also, I would be so grateful if you could spread the word out and help to lift and support the other women around you, okay? So please, please spread the message if you can. So why don't we get things started by asking you guys a question? And if you're watching the replay, please feel free to dive into the comment section here as well. Or if you're watching this on my website, truthfully.ca, you can also feel free to jump into the comments on the blog there and get into this conversation as well. I respond back to every conversation, and I really like to hear from you guys because it helps me to better understand on where you're at and what you're struggling with and how I can better support you. Okay, so let's start this off and kick things off with a question to get this going. So please tell me in the comment section below, hit me up in the comments, what does your current relationship with your body look and feel like? What does your current relationship with your body look and feel like? And how would you describe your relationship with your body? Hit me up in the comments and let me know. And for those of you who are just jumping on, we're literally just getting started. I jumped on a little bit later because I was having some technical difficulties with Facebook, of course, because, you know, Facebook's always changing the game. So please feel free to get in on the conversation because we're literally just getting started. So I just asked the question of, what does your current relationship with your body look and feel like? And how would you describe your relationship with your body? Hit me up in the comments and fill me in. So the relationship that I used to have with my body, to be completely honest and transparent, it was pretty toxic. I was constantly in this state of judgment, constantly in this state of comparison, constantly wanting to manipulate and change how she looked. And that really started from the time that I was very young. I want to say like probably the 3rd or 4th grade. As soon as I started to develop, weight started to sit on me a little bit more. I was the girl who started to develop boobs and body parts that, you know, made me feel a little bit uncomfortable because I'd start getting these rude comments from the boys in my class. So I always really felt out of sorts with my body. I never really felt like I was at home within myself, you know. I was someone who would avoid mirrors at all costs. I would even close my eyes when I was getting dressed just because I didn't want to look at the reflection in the mirror. My mom, I love her, but she used to make comments when I was younger about my arms being big, and she'd grab onto them, which made me feel really insecure. And I just really did not feel good in the skin that I was in. I think that's the best way to describe it, you know? And because of this, I would constantly be going on every single diet under the sun. You name it, I've done it, I promise you. Or I would spend like countless hours at the gym working out because I was so fearful that I was going to gain weight or that I had gained weight from the food that I was eating. So I was just constantly back and forth with my body, just fighting her with this tug of war. And if I wasn't doing that, then I was thinking all day about all the ways that I should punish her for what I had done. So it was really this endless war. That's what it felt like, just like this endless war that just never ended, right? And it was only once I was able to change my relationship with my body that all of this crap and this tormentation that I was going through, tormenting, really began to dissolve, right? But it took a lot of hard work. It did, but that's why I really wanted to share what I learned with you and pass some information along to hopefully speed up your journey a little bit, okay? So let's just dive into the comments really quick. I'm just gonna move this, dive into the comments. So we have Dawn here from Melbourne, Australia. Hello, Dawn. Welcome. Good to see you. I'm so glad to be back. You're beginning to understand her more now. And I love that Dawn used the word her here. That's a word that I use when I relate to my body. I speak to my body as her because I feel like she's an actual part of me. She's a being. And I love that she said, I'm beginning to understand her more. That's amazing. I'm so glad. Cece's here as well. Welcome, Cece. Hello. So Cece says, still a little bit self-conscious about my weight, but I know that I'm healthy and strong. That is beautiful. And I know, Cece, that you're going to do some tree planting this summer, and I think that's going to have you be even more connected to yourself and feeling even more healthier and strong. So that's great that you're on this journey and that you guys are here, because I mean, we all have things that we need to work on, all have things that we need to advance and grow. So it's great that you guys are here on this conversation, but I'm glad to hear that you're working towards a place of more connection and self-love. That's awesome. Great. So now that I know that where you guys are at, and now that you guys have sort of heard my story and like what I experienced with my body, on a scale of 1 to 10, tell me honestly, have you ever felt any of the things that I've shared here about how I was sort of feeling and living in my body? Do any of the things that I shared resonate with you? 10 would be like, oh gosh, all the feels, I know exactly what you're talking about, and 1 being, no, thankfully, I've always been in a really good place with my body. So just to kind of recap, you know, I would avoid my body at all costs. I would hide from mirrors. I wouldn't even look at myself when I was getting dressed. I would punish my body with major restriction, always being on a diet, always working out at the gym. So Dawn is a solid 9. Yeah, I'm glad you can feel me, Dawn. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you've experienced that, or if you are currently experiencing any of those things, I'm sorry that you're going through that. But the good news here is that you can absolutely come into this place of love. There's no doubt about that. It all comes down to being willing to look at our behaviors and really see that this is disconnected, and then do something about it by showing up. So you're here, and that's a bold first step. Okay, so I'm going to help you guys navigate this a little bit, because today we're actually going to be talking about the top 3 influences that actually get in the way of you making peace with your body, and what really causes this negative body image and weight issues. Okay, because I want you guys to be able to spot these influences, so that way when they come up, you can see them for what they are and not let them overtake you. Okay, I think that's really important, because that's all part of this self-awareness, right? So the first thing I wanted to share, I'm just going to get right into it, because I don't want to take too much of your time. So let's just get right into it and give you guys some value here. Okay, so the first influence I want you guys to notice, okay, are the distorted ideas about body image that come from years and years and years of media exposure. Okay, and this is the obvious one. I think this is the one we're, by this point, like we're aware of, especially nowadays with social media being on the rise, right? So tell me, guys, because again, I want to know where you're at. How has the media influenced the way that you perceived your body? Take a look at your lifespan and have a look at media in general, and from the time that you were young to you know, whatever age you may be at now, how has the media influenced the way that you look and perceive your body? Hit me up in the comments and let me know. So media exposure, it used to be just, you know, magazines, and the ones that like really stand out to me are things like Cosmo and 17. Those were the magazines that I used to read when I was younger. So it could be things like magazines, right? It could also be things like TV shows, right? Whether you watch like series of TV shows, or, you know, these reality TV shows. I used to watch a lot of soap operas when I was younger. Passions was a big one for me. Every day after school, I would come home and watch Passions. So TV shows can play a really big influence. But then, of course, there were things like music videos when I was growing up. Music videos were a huge one. I grew up in the era of pop music. So it was all about Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera and the Spice Girls, and all of those very sexualized women. Okay, that's kind of what I grew up with. And then there's also things, you know, like billboards, like billboard ads, especially if you're living in a big city, for fashion and all those sorts of things, right? So these are the type of influence that I saw. John is saying, I wanted to have the perfect body, perfect abs. Okay, so maybe John was looking at more fitness related influences. I'm going to chat about that in just a second, right? So these are so many different types, so many different things that are in your face all the time, like no matter where you go, right? It's on the TV, it's on the billboards, it's in the magazines, at the grocery store, like it's everywhere. It's just constant, right? But on top of that, so when I was growing up, that's what I was dealing with. But now on top of that, so the children growing up in this generation, they now have social media to deal with, right? So they have their phones, and let's be honest, we're on our phones more than we're on any other form of media now. Like, that's what we're seeing, that's what's always in our faces, and we're spending a lot of time there, right? So it can be very challenging because it is always in your face, right? But over time, the challenge is here is that over time, these images and what you're seeing, even though these images may be subtle at the time and you may not even think that they're influencing you at all, especially when you're younger, you're just kind of like, whatever, you don't even think of it, right? Over time, these can play a very, very, very significant role in influencing your norms and what you see as being normal, right? And what you see as being accepted. And they really influence what constitutes as the ideal body image, because it's what you're always seeing. And when you're always seeing the same thing, you think that that's the way that things should be. And if you are not matching up to those standards, you think that you're the problem. You guys see what I'm saying, right? And like I was mentioning, you know, this goes way beyond like just the fashion magazines and you know, the social media pages and the advertisement. It goes so much further than that. And like Dawn said, you know, she had this idealism of like, okay, I want to have the perfect body, and to her that meant having the perfect abs, like probably like a 6-pack washboard abs, right? And this is where things get tricky. This is where things get tricky, because these days I'm actually finding that it's less about the music industry or the fashion industry that's causing these influences, and I feel like it's more about these healthy and holistic pursuits. So for example, things like yoga teachers being really fit, natural living, fitness models, right? I really feel like lately that is what has been pushing this agenda of you need to be fit, you need to be strong, train insane or remain the same. Like discipline. If you're not disciplined, then you're lazy. Like, I really feel like this whole health scene has really been pushing this agenda more than the fashion industry, more than the music industry, right? Have you guys seen that as well? Have you guys seen that? So what I'm saying is that they're really utilizing these models who are either unnaturally thin or they have like this perfect physique, and they're using those in this types of ways. So that way people think, oh, well, if I eat healthy and if I work out all the time, I will be thin, right? I will have this perfect image that I've always wanted, right? So think here, think about Instagram, because I feel like Instagram is really known for this, right? So fitness models, fitness pages, healthy lifestylers, nutritionists, sometimes even holistic practitioners, right? So I think it's really important to pay attention to these, because I think that they can really sneak by us without us even realizing, right? So Cece just mentioned here in the comments, used to read magazines when I was younger too, but mainly the peers around me and their comments influenced my thoughts. So that's really interesting too. So Cece's saying it was more the people that she was surrounded with, and they can absolutely have an influence on you. Of course they could, right? Especially your friends are trying to fit in when you're younger. You know, you really just want to really find your community and build bonds with people. And if they're all saying certain things and they're all in agreement, and you're kind of like, you know, the one on the outside, of course you're going to want to agree with them and listen to what they're saying to feel like you're fitting in, right? So that's a really good point, Cece. Thank you for bringing that up. So she said that she was in her first year of uni and she was in a program where people focused on their body image. Oh yeah, college was a big one for me too. Absolutely. I lived in a house of all girls, and someone was always dieting, and then you were always like, well, I want to do what you're doing, right? So yeah, your peers, definitely a big influence too. And who are they influenced by? Usually the media, right? So even if you're not directly influenced by the media, those around you could be directly influenced by the media, which then could influence you. So it's just like really this domino effect, right? And that's why we have to be really conscious here, okay? But here's the thing that we don't see. Here's the thing that we don't see. The thing that we don't see is that this portrayed thin ideal is completely and utterly unrealistic for most people to obtain in a healthy manner, okay? Let me give you an example. When I was at my thinnest, my absolute thinnest, I was training 2 times a day for probably 3 hours a day, okay? I was also following a very strict and rigid meal plan that did not allow me to have anything that I wanted. And I was like, my whole day was planned out to a T of what I would be eating and what I would be consuming, okay? And good luck having a social life when you're trying to eat so rigidly. Good luck having a social life, right? So that's not healthy. Doing that is not healthy. Spending all my time and energy and thoughts on obsessing about what I'm eating and how I'm working out, that's not healthy. But that was the only way that I was able to obtain that body image. Not to mention all these supplements and diet pills I was taking on top of that. Also not healthy for my body, right? So just think about this for a second. They portray this image, but it's very unrealistic for most people to actually obtain, right? And if you do obtain this thin ideal, if you do obtain it, right, it's extremely hard to maintain, like I mentioned, right? Because you have to be extremely rigid with your foods and you have to be extremely rigid with your exercise regimes, right? And it literally controls your life. So unless you're really wanting to have that life where you're always, following all the rules and sticking to a plan all the time, it's really just going to be this back and forth with your body of punishment and guilt and shame. Okay. And I went through a lot of that when I was preparing for a cabana pool party I was going to. And I just remember, like, my poor boyfriend, he was just like, when is this going to end? Like, it was just, I was completely obsessive with it. So you guys really have to be careful with that. And I guess, like, a really good example of this is, those like physique or bodybuilding figure competitions? Have you guys ever seen those or had any friends that have done them? So I personally know several people who have worked months and months and months to prepare and train and eat for these events, right? They've worked immensely hard to prepare for these events. And the thing is they only maintain, like, once they get there, and they do the show and they're done the show, usually right after the show, they give themselves what they call a cheat meal, which is usually a big ass burger and large fries and a pop, because they've been starving themselves and restricting themselves so much for so many months. Then they eat that meal, and then guess what? They're usually only able to maintain that figure that they worked months and months and months and months towards achieving. They can usually only maintain it for a couple days, if maybe a week, before they have to give their body a break, and they have to go back to doing how they were living, how they were used to living, because it's so hard on their body. It's so immensely hard on their body, and that's why they can't sustain it. So these images are being put on this pedestal of, this is how you need to look, this is how you need to be in order to be healthy, in order to be strong. But meanwhile, even the people who are training and doing it can't sustain it because they need to give their body a break. Do you guys see what I'm saying here? Is this resonating with you? Hit me up in the comments with a yes if this is resonating with you guys and you guys understand the examples that I'm sharing, or you're witnessing this in your life. I'm getting some yeses. Okay, cool. Good. Good. I'm glad that this is resonating. Okay, so the next influence that can really break down your self-esteem and help and have you dealing with weight issues is continuous negative self-talk. Okay, and I'm talking about these repetitive thoughts that circle around in your head that you keep saying to yourself until you believe them to be true. Okay? These thoughts are very, very damaging, and they are influencing you in a massive way, okay? So tell me, do you have reoccurring thoughts that are of you criticizing yourself or others? Are you having these reoccurring thoughts that just continue to tumble in and never stop, that you are having about criticizing yourself or others? Be honest and let me know in the comments. I'm getting some yeses. What type of thoughts are you guys having about yourself or others? What's coming up for you? The more you can witness it and call it out, the easier it will be for you to take back your power. So that's why I'm asking you to name it if you can. Okay, it's really important to identify what they are. So have you ever said things like, I hate myself, I can't stand to look in the mirror anymore, I don't know anyone who would love me in this size, I'm embarrassed and shameful of letting my body go this far? Have you guys said things like that? I know I definitely have. Those are my examples. So I've definitely said those myself. And they're very common. So have you guys said anything like that? So let me just say, this type of defeated way of thinking really results in these habitual patterns that only reinforce the self-esteem. Okay, they only reinforce this low self-esteem. Okay, when you are in this really defeated way of thinking, and it gets really destructive, and it's like this destructive cycle, right? Because you just, you think something, and then you're like believing it's true, and then that thought gets stronger and stronger, and you continue to think it, and it gives it more power, right? So it becomes really difficult, because when you believe it to be so true, that's what your reality is, right? And it gets really hard to break out of that, okay? So when you get caught up in these thoughts that are, disempowering, they're self-sacrificing, self-destructive, you can be sure that the behaviors to follow those thoughts will be just as toxic. And here's the thing, every time that you have a thought, it's your thought that leads to your emotions, and then those emotions which lead to your behaviors. Okay, so you're acting out in certain ways because of a thought that's triggering it. Okay, so it's really important to pay attention here. Okay, so if you're able to notice your thoughts and you're able to pinpoint them, this will help you to actually transform them, because once you can see them for what they are, you can then begin to question them and ask yourself, like, is this really true? Or is this just a story that I've made up that's now leading to all these other patterns in my life and all these other behaviors, right? So in this way, you can consciously choose the next right action. But if you aren't paying attention to them and you're allowing them to circle around and do whatever they need to do, you're going to get pulled into whatever direction those thoughts are taking you, right? So thought that Dawn has identified, thank you for sharing, Dawn. I think if I have the perfect body, only then will I attract a partner. Ugh, I so feel that one. I struggled a lot with that, Dawn. That's pretty much what caused my disordered eating and my disconnected relationship with my body, was that I thought that if I didn't have the perfect body, I was not worthy of love, which was total bullshit. It was total bullshit. Like, let's be honest. The forever guy that I'm with now, he has loved me at my heaviest, and he's loved me at my thinnest, and he loves me everywhere in between. It does not matter, because he doesn't love me for how I look or the size of my body. He loves me for who I am. And if you really want to get into a serious, important relationship with someone that you want to spend your life with, you want them to love you for exactly as you are, right? So that thought right there, like, you can just see, like, it's a total lie. Like, no, you will attract the right partner if they're right for you, but there's no point in attracting someone who is so superficial that your body is the only thing that they love about you, right? So it's definitely having a look there. It's having a look there. And you know what, guys? Like, this is so incredibly common. This is why we're so influenced, because our brains go a million miles a minute and they keep us stuck in this distorted thinking, right? And the best way to describe it, I worked with a CBT coach a couple of years ago, and she said it the best way. She said, we have these old files stored in our minds, and we are reacting to them all the time, right? It's almost like we have, like, you guys remember, like, Windows 98 on your computers, like the big desktop computers? It's almost like our our old thoughts, the old thoughts in our head are like this Windows 98 program, but we need to update them. We need to update them to MacBook Pros. We need to update them to, Windows 2018, like whatever it may be. We have to update these thoughts. We got to stop these old dated files in our brain from taking over. We need to update them constantly, okay? So that they start running the show, right? So Byron Katie's one of my most favorite women to work off of. She's so incredibly intelligent. And she said a quote that I really loved. And it was, if you slow down and take a look, you'll find that there is always a particular thought that triggers any stressful feeling. And that's exactly true. And that's exactly what I meant by your thought triggers your feelings, which then leads to a behavior. So paying attention to our thoughts is extremely important here. Hit me up with some hearts or some love if you guys can see that and you're in agreement that your thought absolutely is an influence in this body realm game. So we got the media. The media definitely influences. We got our own thoughts, our own self-critical thoughts. That is a massive influence. So what else? What's the third one? The third one is the belief we have around thinness equaling happiness or thinness equaling love, right? Like I shared, that was a big one for me. Dawn shared that one as well. So this is huge, you guys. This is huge. The belief that we think that thinness equals happiness or thinness equals love, that's influencing us huge. We have to let go that thinness is the ideal here, but only we can do that. Only we can do that, okay? So have you always believed that thinness equals happiness? Have you always believed that? Or do you believe that? Are you still believing that? Hit me up in the comments with a guess if you believe this at some point or another. I know for me, I believed that right up until the point that I was about, I want to say 25 years old. I thought that thinness equaled everything. And I would judge people who were not thin, especially when I got thin. I got into this place of being like, well, I got thin, so if I can do it, anyone can do it. And people who don't are just lazy. I totally got into an egoistic state. And that's the thing, when you're constantly just focusing on the ego and body image and stuff like that, totally lose sense of love, and you go into this place of judgment, which is not healthy, by the way. It's not healthy, right? So we got to be really careful here. And the thing is, truth of the matter is, the belief that thinness equals happiness, it's a total myth. It's an absolute myth. And I wrote an entire blog post on this, which I can add into the caption at the end of this live training. So you guys can reread that if you'd like to, because I think it's really important to read that as well. But I know this. I know that it's a myth that thinness equals happiness because I've experienced it firsthand. I've gone through this already, And to be honest, I never felt lower than when I was at my lowest weight. You know why? You know why? Because I took up less space in the world. I took up less space in the world. And who wants to feel like it's important to take up less space? If anything, we should be taking up more space in the world. We need to be bigger and bolder and louder, not quieter and softer and smaller, okay? And when I was at my thinnest, I was honestly so incredibly empty. And it's because I forgot who I was. I forgot what my hobbies were, my interests were, and I was disconnected from the relationships in my life. I didn't do things for fun anymore because what became my hobbies and interests was losing weight, eating healthy, and working out. I lost who I was. And that's not what this life and this journey is about, right? That's not what this is about. So Dawn said, being skinny really meant I lived the perfect life. That's what we think, right? And why do we think that way? Well, of course, because that's what we see in the media, right? We see these images of these women who look like they're living their perfect lives in the perfect bodies. That's what they want us to see. That's what they want us to feel. Why? Because then we prescribe to that thought and to that idea, We believe that thought and that idea, and we run with it, and we think that we always need to change in order to be happy. But guess what? Happiness is within. Happiness is within. Happiness is a choice that you make every single day, right? And put it this way. Put it this way, okay? Here's proof right here that being thin doesn't equal happiness. If it were true, if being thin equaled being happy, wouldn't this massive, I'm talking like $30 billion industry, yes, billion with a B, this $30 billion industry, wouldn't this culture of dieting been lost years ago, like years and years and years ago, of people living in pure happiness and joy around the globe from losing weight and being thin? Wouldn't everyone be happy then? Wouldn't we be walking around with all these stoked people just pumped on life? That's not happening. That's not happening. People are feeling more disconnected and emptier than ever. Because thinness doesn't equal happiness, you guys. That's what they want you to believe, okay? We're not even close to experience that. We're still striving to be better and fitter and leaner and even more of something else. There's always something, because if you're always putting happiness out here, then you're always going to be trying to strive to achieve that thing, okay? You'll always be striving to achieve that thing. So what actually makes you happy? What is it that actually makes you happy? It's acceptance. It's acceptance of yourself and beginning to really tune inwards and developing an authentic connection to your spirit. And that's why spirituality is so incredibly important on this journey. It's definitely a piece that I touch on with the women that I work with. I actually just finished doing that piece in my 90-day group sisterhood program that I'm working on with some women. And I always find that that's when things really start to click for the women I work with. They really understand that spirituality is a huge component here. And it is, right? Because when you're in that space of connecting with spirit, you realize that the physical body doesn't have to look a certain way, that you can feel amazing from really just tuning inwards, right? And this is where the real happiness and joy comes from, okay? And ironically, when this happens, when you become in this place of joy and happiness and you stop focusing so much on the outcome and how you look, that's when the unhealthy weight will begin to dissipate. It will begin to fall off because you're not putting so much pressure on yourself. Okay, and you're really going to come to understand that a healthy body is just as important as a healthy mind. It's just as important. We have 4 components to our being: the physical, the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual. And if you're not considering all of these components, it's going to be really tough to find self-fulfillment. Okay? It's going to be really, really tough. So Dawn says she's understanding what I'm saying. Good. To be happy, we naturally begin to eat for our physical body. Absolutely, we do when we do connect. But again, Dawn, it's those other components we have to consider: the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual, as well as the physical, right? It's very, very important. So I want to ask you guys, now that you've heard about the 3 influences, I really want you guys to start paying attention to. And just to recap them, we have the media. This is the common one, the one that most of us see. But the one that, the 2 that we don't really see are the ones that we're inflicting upon ourselves. And that is our own negative mindset about our body, and also the belief that thinness equals happiness. We have to be the ones to let go of that belief. The media is going to keep pushing it. It's not going to go away. It never has, and it never will. So we have to be the ones to really see it for what it is and call BS on it, okay? And that's where I really want you guys to stand in your power. But I want you guys to also think about right now, in what ways do you think we, as this anti-diet, body-positive sisterhood, what ways can we help to provide support and emphasis and awareness around this importance of positive body image? How do you think that we can continue to spread awareness on this? What do you guys think? I'd love to hear your intake on that, because I'm always wanting to do more, and I want to see what you guys think of ways that we can really spread this message out there. So just to wrap things up for you guys, something I really wanted to leave you guys with is healing your body image. It doesn't happen overnight. It's not going to happen overnight at all. It's really about loving every square inch of you, one little bit at a time. Okay, it's a process, and it's a daily process, and it's going to require daily reminders, a hell of a lot of self-care, heaps of boundary setting, really having this authentic connection to yourself and others, and really remembering that your size, weight, and shape does not define who you are, and it also doesn't define what makes you happy, okay? So I really want you guys to give yourself some daily recognition into the work that you're doing. Thank you for being here and being present and showing up with me on this journey. For those of you who are part of Turn Up the Love Insiders, amazing. Thank you guys so much for being a part of this community. If you're not a part of Turn Up the Love Insiders, please come join us. It's a totally free Facebook group built around sisterhood. We're very supportive. We have posts that go out every single day. I do a lot of motivational stuff around self-love and ditching diets and reconnecting with food and coming home to your body. And it's a very, very, very loving, supportive space. So if you feel like you need an outlet or you need a place to go that isn't, you know, drowning in diet culture, and you need people to talk to who get it and who are on the same journey as you, please come hang out with us there. We'll welcome you with open arms. You can just search for it on Facebook.